So because I cannot do everything that I have created on in project 2 for hygiene in the stable, because we don't have like all the equipment to do this. Sorry. But I've written here, you need to remove manure and bedding from the stable at least twice daily, which is what we do. Clean and disinfect stables completely. I've only been here 2 months, so I'm not sure if that is done, but if it is, say, a quarantine stable, that would definitely need to be done in between horses and regularly if possible. And that can include removing all the bedding, power washing the whole stable, and deep cleaning waters and feed buckets. And these waters get cleaned every other day, and they are automatic, so we don't have to go and like fill them up or anything, which is quite nice. Here, clean feed buckets twice daily to reduce the growth of mold. Some horses, they eat their food, they go take a drink, they eat their food, they go take a drink, so their food gets really moist, and it can it's a great habitat for mold to grow, but we don't want that. So you just scrub it down or power wash it down, which is works great. Scrubbing the water buckets also. We don't just, when we clean them, we empty them out fully, which is just a little twist at the bottom, and then we just scrub it really well to get like all the gunk that is like built up over the 2 days or 1 day. In a barn, you should always ensure that the walkways are swept to remove dust and dirt that can infect horses or handlers. So down here we don't do that, so we have this barn down here and one up there. This one, the ground is sawdust, but it's not very dusty down here. The barn at the top gets very dusty, so we blow out like with a leaf blower at the end of every shift. So again, no horses get inhale that dust overnight and during the day. Removing cobwebs from the ceiling. At a place I used to work, I went through all of the stalls with a broom and just wiped all the cobwebs down. Pretty good here, there's not many. But yeah, cobwebs bring spiders, brings all kind of unwanted things. So that's always a good thing to do. Wash and disinfect any equipment before using it on a new horse, especially if that horse excuse me, has any illnesses or such. Even if it's not contagious, it's always best to do so. Remove any uneaten food, and to be sure to not feed it to another horse. This is a big one. And it's also important to always check how much your horse has eaten, because if they haven't touched anything, that could be a huge problem. And just if you take out that food that they didn't eat and say give it to another horse, if they did have some sort of virus that was causing them not want to eat, then you could go and give it to that other horse, which nobody wants. And lastly, handlers and workers wash hands regularly and wear gloves when needed. We have a sink up there, not down here, but there is a hose tap down here that you can use. Yeah, especially before you go home or such, wash your hands, because you don't want any bacteria, if you touch some poo or anything, get in your car and your steering wheel, you get home and you touch everything, or you touch your face. It's not good. And gloves, especially say you're working with a sick horse, or just any sort of medicine or mud that you put on the horse's legs. It's always nice to use gloves, and it's cleaner. Quite nice. So that's everything that I have in project 2, and I'll be going over project 1 shortly. So here we have project 1 that I did previously, which is a quarantine procedure. So we don't have a quarantine barn here. Generally at this facility, it's a big property with racehorses. He just dribbled his water everywhere, how nice. Generally they'll go to a vet right away, and they definitely have quarantine stalls and such, or they'll go out to a paddock that's well away from other horses and such. So the first thing is, of course, segregation. I did some research, and in a quarantine stall, it should have a 12-meter gap to the next. So here I have a stall, and there is it's not quite 12 meters, it's 10 I believe to the next stall, so there's a huge gap between these 4 and the rest. I don't know how many. That's Hinch making that squeaking sound. But yeah, there should be a big gap because horses are able to sneeze and cough stray droplets up to 5 meters. The alleyway here is 5 meters, so the horses across from each other, you know, it's quite tight, but generally, according to this, they wouldn't be able to spread any of their yucky illnesses and stuff. Excuse me. And the stalls itself, I believe, should be at least 4 by 4 meters. A horse that's sick is going to be uncomfortable, obviously, and I feel like you'd want them to have the most space so they can try to be the most comfortable as possible. And, you know, if you have an actual quarantine barn, to account for any larger breeds such as Shires and Clydesdales and such like that. So you want to be sure that they'll have enough space. I don't know how big these stalls are. They are rectangular, not square. I want to say like 5 meters this way and then maybe 10 meters that way. They're quite big. So these would honestly work for quarantine stalls. We did have a sick horse in one of these, and unfortunately she didn't make it. But she was definitely comfortable. She had a lot of space to lay down and such. Hinch, can you please stop? I don't know what he's doing. Signage in a quarantine barn is really important because you don't want anybody, like any bystanders, just walking right into the barn and petting the horses and blah blah blah, and then they leave the barn and they pet another horse, and then you just have a big virus that spreads around like COVID. Nobody wants that. So the sign should be posted around the area outside the barn and especially like inside the barn. So what do I mean by that? So you obviously want a sign at the front of the barn to say, hey, this is a quarantine barn, but around the property saying, this is the quarantine barn, this way is the quarantine barn, don't go that way unless authorized. Handling sick horses. Handling ill horses should be done by someone who is qualified for sure, so they know what to do and it minimizes any risks and possible spreading that could happen. And yeah, I think that's all I wrote. And hygiene is a big one, because we all know, wash your hands, minimize your risk of getting sick. But some hygiene for horses includes disposing of any feed that isn't eaten, which I stated before. And after a horse leaves the quarantine stall, they should be deep cleaned, as I mentioned before. So when a new horse comes in, they don't get their virus, because horse comes in that's sick, we don't want them to get sick with another thing, because that wouldn't be good. I don't like windsuckers. Oh dear. When it comes to handlers, they should wash their hands consistently and constantly between handling each horses, again, to ensure no cross-contamination from horse to horse, just by, a simple touch. And equipment, so it's pretty basic. Equipment in the quarantine barn can include gloves, needles, syringes, drenches, restraints such as hobbles in case your horse is, quite chaotic and doesn't like any treatment. Vet wrap and biohazard waste bin. We don't have a biohazard waste bin down here, but there is one up the top for all the needles and such, and that gets emptied properly. That's the word. And lastly, some personal protective equipment. Some PPE could obviously include gloves, closed-toed shoes. I wear steel-toed because I learned my lesson. Yeah. A helmet and a protective vest, especially if the horse you're working with is, again, quite chaotic and is very stressed out and just reacts, and you can get hurt very easily because these are quite large animals. Quite a lot of damage. But yeah, so that was project 1 and 2. So yeah, hope you enjoyed. So in this task 1, I have to, do stable hygiene, quarantine, and disease and ailment prevention. So I obviously talked about those in project 1 and 2, and I went over those previously. But here I am able to complete some stable hygiene, so I'm just cleaning this horse Maverick's stall. So yeah, I sped it up and I hope you enjoy me giving him all the love in the world.